Ever look around and think, this sure wasn't how we did it when I was a kid? I grew up in church, and for me, it was totally normal to arrive in a church van without seatbelts, bring cupcakes with gluten and peanuts, and play the game Red Rover with my Sunday school class. If you don't know, that game is actually now illegal in many states because so many kids broke their arms. So these days, we do a lot more to prioritize safety in our churches, and I am so thankful. As leaders, one of our primary responsibilities is making sure the kids that we serve are safe while they're in our care. In fact, I'd say it this way. For someone who leads kids and teenagers, the most important thing we do each week is this: create a safe place. That's why so many of you filled out applications, had interviews, and background checks before volunteering, because we want to create a safe place with safe people. It's also why we have so many policies and procedures for snack time, check-in time, playtime, and all the other times that we're together. Safety is paramount. But I gotta tell you, as a therapist and an author and a mom, there's so much more to this than just putting some good rules in place. It's also about creating emotional safety for the kids and teens that we lead. It's creating a sense that everything will be okay. No matter what question I ask, no matter what doubts I have, no matter what rule I break. And this kind of safety doesn't happen from stage. It actually happens in relationships. That's why your role is so important. For a kid to truly feel that kind of safe, they have to believe that there are safe people here who know them, who know their family, who know their story, and who are for them no matter what. So how do we do that? How do you create that kind of a safe place? I think it all starts with having a personal relationship with a kid or a teenager. And while there are lots of ways to build those relationships, I want to give you 5 questions that I think will help. So these are 5 questions that every kid or teenager is asking, even if they're not asking them out loud. And when you and I have the answer, guess what? We're demonstrating that we are a safe place. And the good news is the questions may be simpler than you might think. They all start the same way. Do you know? Do you know? The first question is this: do you know my name? Do you know my name? This is both a literal and symbolic question, and it really does start by being as simple as that. Take the time to learn the names of the kids and teenagers in your group or your ministry area. Not only that, learn how to say it properly. Trust me, I grew up with the first name Chinwei. Ask them if you're getting it right. Ask them to correct you if you get it wrong. And make sure that they see that they are worth the effort of remembering and remembering correctly. Learning someone's name lets them know that they are seen. They aren't a number. They aren't part of a mass of people. They're known. Even more than that, they are known by you. Knowing someone's name lets them know that they are worth remembering. And when you take the time to learn it by saying it out loud, repeating it, discovering the story of how someone got their name, writing their name down, connecting to it visually, and praying for that name, you communicate honor. You're honoring an individual whose life you have chosen to invest in. So question number 1 that we need to answer to let kids and teenagers know that we are safe is, do you know my name? The next question is, do you know where I live? Do you know where I live? When a child or a teenager asks this question, they're really asking, do you understand the circumstances that make me me? For us as leaders, this is a chance for us to demonstrate empathy, to, instead of projecting my experience or my understanding onto their experience, to be a student of someone else's experience. In fact, you could say that it's impossible to really know someone unless we know their generational, geographical, cultural context. These things are so woven into the fabric of what makes us us that to lead anyone being ignorant of these things It's not to lead them as well as they deserve to be led. So, not being able to answer the question of where someone lives is to leave way too much room for assuming what they're like and what their experiences are. And more often than not, the assumptions that we end up making are that this person should be exactly like us, that they should think like us, believe like us, feel like us. But to enter into someone's context, the places that they physically and symbolically live, and to discover what their home, school, and culture is like, is to allow ourselves to be surprised by what we discover and makes us curious to learn more. When we make the decision to be a safe person for the children and the teenagers we lead, we need to know that that involves immersing ourselves in their world in order to better understand their context. Proactively making the decision to do that sends the message that we respect their personality, we respect their process, and we respect their boundaries. We communicate that we know that they are much more than who we see on any given Sunday. And we want to learn where they live the rest of the week, right? Culturally, digitally, where they live socially and emotionally. Learning in everyday context communicates empathy for whatever they're experiencing and wherever they're experiencing it. Okay, next question is, do you know what matters to me? Do you know what matters to me? Learning someone's name is just scratching the surface. Becoming a safe person for someone else means taking the time to learn what really makes them tick. So this means learning what matters to them, but also why it matters. So a preschooler who loves, let's say, Peppa Pig, or an elementary age child obsessed with Pokemon, that's my child, or a high school student's love of TikTok, all of those things serve as clues into the person in front of you. Real curiosity, interest, time, and attention spent learning these things actually communicates worth. It validates who someone is and communicates not only are you worth knowing, you're worth liking. Discovering what matters to someone begins with questions. So, Barbara Walters, one of the most famous interviewers ever, once said that everyone thinks that the most important question you can ask is the first one, but it's actually the second question. The first one gets asked, and the second one should follow up. Tell me more. What do you mean? Those second questions show that you're listening. So, when we're in the process of discovering what matters to someone, asking questions that express interest and then follow up questions that let the child or the teenager know that we're paying attention and that we want to know more, participating in their interests with them and considering their perspective, we make deposits of trust in relationships. When someone knows that they matter, they know that they have worth to the person who shows interest, and that person becomes a safe person. Okay, the next question is, do you know what I've done? Do you know what I've done? No one has to tell us what shame feels like because let's face it, we've all experienced it. We know the feeling of doing something wrong and internalizing it so deeply and so completely that we move from thinking that we did a bad thing to we are a bad person. So, one of the most important things that we can do in our desire to be a safe person for the children and teenagers we lead is to be able to answer the question of, do you know what I've done? But with unconditional love and acceptance. While not everyone needs to know everything a child or a teenager has done that prompts guilt or shame, every child and teenager needs to have someone that they can confide in, someone that they can trust, someone who knows them, even the parts of themselves that they don't feel good about. By being a safe person to hold the truths confided to us, we combat shame's biggest lie, that because of wrongdoing, we're not worthy to be loved. But demonstrating love in the face of what a child or a teenager has done and shared with us communicates that they have value, that they have worth, that they can be forgiven, and that they will be okay. In responding this way, shame is replaced with hope. And hope in the kids and the teenagers we are leading is a powerful thing. Hope reminds the next generation that they are far more than their worst moments, that they have worth and value, and that forgiveness is never far off. By leading this way, we are not only communicating that we are a safe person, we're also instilling in the kids and teenagers we're leading a foundational idea of what God is like. If we replace shame with hope and love and forgiveness, they will begin to experience God in this same way. That means that this is about more than just being a safe person every now and again. It's about laying a spiritual foundation that they can build on for the rest of their lives. The final question that we can ask in becoming a safe person for the kids and teenagers we lead is this: do you know what I can do? Do you know what I can do? I think all of us, given enough time, could remember what it felt like to be a kid or a teenager. The world often felt very big and scary. I remember feeling that way. And in fact, maybe that's still how it feels to us today. But we probably felt like we had a lot less control as kids than we do as adults. Even worse, the adults in our lives didn't think we could do much about the world either. As difficult as navigating childhood or adolescence may have been for us, today's kids and teenagers are experiencing a different kind of childhood and adolescence than we did. And in a lot of ways, it's actually much harder. That's why being a safe person for the next generation matters so much, because growing up in these times is really difficult. The world is complicated, to say the least, and we need them to know that we believe in what they're capable of doing, not just making their way in the world, but making the world a better place. When a child or a teenager feels overwhelmed and powerless, they need an adult to see them and to speak life to them, encouraging them in ways that they may not even know they needed encouragement. And when we answer the question for the next generation, do you know what I can do? We're telling them that their story is just getting started and that they have a place in this community and in this world that only they can fill. Believing in what a child or a teenager can do is changing their perspective from a fixed mindset to what Carol Dweck, a social and developmental psychologist, calls a growth mindset. A growth mindset changes the way that our kids and teenagers see the future. It changes it from "it's going to always be this way" to "maybe there's a different way." Helping a child or a teenager see that not only communicates that we are a safe person, it actually communicates that they're worth helping in reaching their fullest potential. Oftentimes, a child or a teenager can't even see the potential in themselves. In that case, as leaders, we can be the person who instills it in them. We can help them see for themselves that they can do good, they can offer real love, and they can change in ways that matter. So, quick recap. Do you know my name, where I live, what matters to me, what I've done, and what I can do? I get it. That's a lot of questions, but when we as leaders know how to answer those questions, we become the people the next generation can count on when they need it the most. We become the safe people that they go to when the world around them just doesn't feel very safe. We can be the main characters in their story that God is writing for a kid or a teenager right now. Leading isn't always easy, but when we can answer these 5 questions in a way that communicates these kids and teenagers are known, we can demonstrate for the next generation a God who knows them personally, a God who loves them, and a God who is always a safe place.